This has been an incredible week. So, in short, this is the first full time week I've been a property flipper or house developer or whatever you want to call it. Prior to that, I was still working, doing this on the side, or I was managing half term periods. So, this week, 5 days, full on site every day, giving it absolutely everything. And I think I've probably learned three things. Number one, speed. In my head, this business works if I can flip or get houses refurbed in 8 to 12 weeks. In that time, I can buy the next one. So I go from the end of one refurb into another. I don't want to have any fallow periods. That's possible on these small terraced houses, but it's a lot harder to make happen than I ever imagined. Even in this week alone, getting materials on site, thinking about the sequence of work so I don't have to redo anything, and having other third parties turn up and do what I need them to do at the right moment in that sequence is really hard work. So to achieve my speed, I'm going to have to use my brain a lot more than I expected. Kind of related to that is the speed of work itself. So this week, for example, I've been attempting to batten, insulate, and board walls. I use friends. I've got a builder mate called Nick, and I've got Big Leon, who's on the video this week. I use ChatGPT, I use Google, I use Reddit to figure out what's the right way of tackling a task. I haven't done this before. Once I've done it once or twice, I shouldn't need to call those people or go on those online resources. But for now, I'm an idiot, so I'm kind of learning it from scratch. Those sources often give me the right answer. Like, what's the right way to do with this? How do I deal with the damp? How do I deal with the moisture? What's the right material? What's the right price I should be paying for these things, etc.? They're all amazing resources to have around me, but they don't often think about this from a speed point of view. So, for example, on the wall battening, I started off thinking I should put some battens on the wall and then I should fill those battens with insulation, leave a gap behind. So I obsessed over buying the right thickness of wood so that it was a bit thicker than the insulation and left a gap behind for ventilation. But the reality is it's much quicker just to stick the insulation over the battens, and therefore you don't need particularly thick battens. You can just get the same size battens for every single room. And then when I came to that realization I could go quicker doing that, I realized I had to get the insulation upstairs, and it's a very small house with a very small stairway, so I have to cut it up anyway. So thinking about how to do those individual jobs as quickly as possible, doing them properly, but doing them quickly means I can finish a day with the job done, and the next day I can turn to the next task rather than continuing with the same task the next morning, which is really what's slowing me down. I think the second thing I've learned this week is I've reviewed the economic model. So my mental model is I need to get 20% ROI, 20% profit on a flip or in revaluing and remortgaging a house to rent. That's my rule of thumb. That's prior to capital gains in the event I pay that. So if a house costs me £100,000 to buy and refurb, then I need to sell it for at least 120 for that to be worth it in that kind of sort of 8 to 12 week period. Ideally more, but that's kind of the mental model. I bought this house for 95. You may remember from video one, I could have got it from 90, but super naive. Didn't make an offer on the house because it was the first house I looked at, so I didn't know that it was a good buy at 90. Ended up paying 108 total, right? Because on top of the 95, you've got stamp duty and you've got these auction fees that I didn't know about. They really caught me out. So there wasn't an enormous amount of opportunity to spend on refurb because I was operating under the assumption that the max I'd get for the house is 140. Now, I now know how to research the ceiling, the top value of a house in a street much better, looking at sort of selling resources, looking at history of sales, etc. I realized that was probably a little low. So there are houses for sale on that street at that price, but they're not finished to a particularly high standard. They're not modernized. They're not optimized for space either. Their gardens aren't particularly nice. what prompted me this week to start thinking about, is my ceiling at 140 the right one, was two things. One, I found out I had to spend a lot of money on the roof, completely blowing my refurb budget, which made me panic a little bit. And then number two, I saw a house up the road on the market for 170, and it's amazingly finished. It's really good condition, but it got me thinking, maybe I'm over panicking and being over conservative at 140. So I've reset my budget plan at 160. I've reset my budget for refurbishment in alignment with that to still achieve 20%. And fundamentally, that means I can probably invest in this roof and do the right thing by the house. Fixing the roof will extend its life. If I do retain it as a rental, that means I haven't got to worry about leaking, and all the damp issues will probably dry up, excuse the pun. And then the third thing that I've learned this week is the physical aspect. 26 years sat behind a keyboard didn't prepare me to be a full-time physical manual person. It's really cool. I'm really enjoying it. I am getting thinner. My favorite green trousers no longer fit on me without a belt. But I'm 48 years old, and I have to think ahead about how I'm using my energies. I will get fitter, I will get more conditioned, but it's really hit me like a train. It's Saturday afternoon right now. I've done 5 days on site. 4 of them were working hard. One of them was just a planning day, and I'm absolutely knackered. So I've got to be careful with my body, because the worst thing that I can do is injure myself and therefore not be able to do anything at all. I've also not been eating right. Like, I've become completely over hungry because I'm using my body, I'm using more calories. I need to eat more, because otherwise I'm just going to run out of energy and I'm going to get sick. So number 3 learning is the most obvious one. Physically, I'm absolutely tired out today. Anyway, this week we had a really great week from a progress point of view. I had lots of help from friends and family, and I've really got going on the house. We'll sort this roof thing out, and we'll make a really good job of this house, and we'll plan to get at least 160 for it, either through selling it or having it revalued to be remortgaged. Next week I'm hoping to really crack on at the same pace, although I'm going to be on my own all week. Hopefully I've learned all the tricks and the trades to go as quickly as possible. I mean, little things like measure all the pieces of wood that you need to cut, so that you go downstairs once and cut them and bring them all up, rather than doing one piece of wood at a time. I mean, I know it sounds bonkers, but that's the sort of level I'm at right now. Right, so I am tackling the next stage of the attic room today. Just going to get these last few floorboards secured. I bought a really cool handy bag of shim things to help level everything in the last place. They're quite expensive, but incredibly handy. And then I'm going to start on this wall, battening out. I'm just going to pull this section of the knee wall away to see what's behind it. I've got to take it off anyway, because if I need to insulate every wall in here, I need to create like a heat envelope, which is completely vented and with gaps all the way around it on the outside. So we're now going to start thinking about a warm side and a cold side. And if I just insulated this wall and the ceiling, but I left this one uninsulated, the heat would just go in that direction. It wouldn't be a very efficient design. There's no point getting high quality, relatively thin insulation material and only doing 3/4 of the room. So this wall's got to come off. I should have got Rent Boy Will to do it, but I wasn't thinking that far ahead at that point. Rent Boy Will is available to be rented this week or next, so that's good. I'll start teasing it away from that wall at the minute to work out what's behind it. I've got some electrical points here to sort out. I need to do it in the right sequence. I've got to get the electrical cables and back sockets in approximately the right place before I start sealing up surfaces. So anyway, I've got a new GoPro holder thing that should allow me to introduce some slightly better angles of my shorts coming down and revealing how unfit I am from the side. Anyway, I'm going to crack on. Despite that incredible enthusiasm, cracking on didn't last very long. So I've taken the first layer off this knee wall, and this looks like old plasterboard or old plaster, and then behind it there's this strange concoction of bits of old thin wood, like a very old kind of thatching style wall. I'm just wanting to make sure that if I pull this wall down, the roof doesn't come down with it. So just going to take a little bit of time over this. First of all, I've got to go and get my bin sorted out so I can put everything I'm taking off straight into a bin rather than having to pick it off the floor. And I'm also going to put a mask on, because I keep forgetting to put a mask on and I keep getting told off. And obviously, not just about being told off, I should be wearing a mask. So here we go. Let me pick you up. There's a fairly big extra void in there. I'm not sure it's particularly usable space because it's quite low. It's not like you could really stand up anywhere much further than where the knee wall is now. But we could certainly go back a little bit, and we could certainly think about how to use that space, but I'm still not completely sure whether this thing here is structural, so I'm not going to take these down. I'm just going to take a little bit more of the wall out, and then I'm going to move on to this wall just to get started on it. But I wanted to look behind here first to understand where I might be battening up to this way. Cool. So I've got to head home a little earlier than I expected today because my little girl's off school. But I think even if I had stayed, I wouldn't have got that much more done. I think what I'm learning quite early is I need to get a little bit of extra muscle here and there for the sort of jobs that benefit from having more pairs of hands. This is probably a very strange viewing angle. You can see my left ear as I drive. Yeah, anyway, it's been a frustrating day. I mean, the good thing is we got all the materials on site, all the plasterboard, all the 50mm insulation for the attic, all the 25mm insulation for the external walls on the first floor. Got pretty good prices. £24 for a 50mm sheet of insulation is pretty good. I definitely didn't overpay. So I've been asking around to see whether I can just get a little bit of help in the next day or two from a couple of folks. Rent boy Will is available maybe towards the end of the week, and brother-in-law Al might be available tomorrow. We're going to find out. Need to get those two knee walls down and out and into the rubbish area that I've created at the back of the house under a tarpaulin in the garden, so that I can. I mean, there was no point in doing any battening today until all of that was out. I was clear where the wiring would go, at least to a trace level, like to know which route it would take. And also, I had a chat with Nick, second dad Nick. He's saying don't faff around putting the insulation between the battens and between the rafters. Just put it over the top. it's much faster, less faffing around, less need for kind of gap filling and all that sort of stuff. Um, so yeah, I'll do that. So as a result of I'll be screwing through board through PIR into batten. I need two things for um, this new plan. One is I'll need longer dry wall screws. You can't use normal screws because they need to really cut through the paper very sharp, and they need to properly go flat on the plasterboard. Normal screws will tear it up and make a mess. So I had 38mm dry wall screws because I was just going through board into batten because the PIR, the insulation, was going to be between the battens. Now I'm going through up to 50mm of insulation. I need much longer dry wall screw. And then secondly, I need some way of marking the floors and wherever to understand where the batterns are once I've covered them in insulation. So ChatGPT is saying just like, mark the floor and then draw a chalk line. Nick was talking about some sort of collar that helps you understand where they are. He was on the phone, so I didn't completely understand him. But I think I'm just going to buy some sort of spray can so I can mark the floor up and maybe mark the roof up so that I've got I might do the chalk line thing, I don't know, but I'm trying to think ahead about ways of doing this faster because I'm not fast yet, and I'm old and my arms are hurting. I've always loved doing DIY. I may have done DIY for 2 or 3 days over a bank holiday weekend, but I've never done this sort of work, every day. I'm sure I'll get conditioned to it, but it has surprised me how much it hurts. So even if I had stayed a few extra hours today, I don't know that I would have got a lot more done. And so I need to start thinking differently about time. I think time is probably more precious than, if I spend, some money on getting in some temporary labour, it'll be money well spent, and I can start getting ahead on the construction. This is a very strange filming angle. I probably won't do it again, but I thought I would just record my thoughts while I still had them live. So I'm heading home now to look after little George, who's off school today. I'm going to go via Screwfix to get some longer screws and see whether they've got some kind of inky jet spray thing that I'm obsessing over, and then I'll see whether Al can come and help me tomorrow. If Al can't help me tomorrow, I'm just going to have to really tough it out tomorrow and get both these knee walls down. It'll be a day of real hard graft, and I need to do these things. This is why I'm doing this. I'm doing it to experience this kind of life and to get fitter and to get thinner and to have a real sense of achievement. All I'm saying is that the best use of my energies, as I am now learning they are limited. My objective is to get to Thursday, so we're Tuesday now. I've got all of tomorrow to try and get the knee walls down and the whole place cleared up and maybe a few battens on the wall, because Thursday Big Leon turns up and he is no nonsense. Like, he's just gonna want to do everything a million miles an hour, because he's that kind of guy. He's very, very experienced, very fast, very no nonsense, and I really want to maximize the time I've got with Big Leon so that I'm using it like optimally. Like, he's coming up for 2 days. He's a buddy. He's my best man. He was my best man at my wedding, and he is doing it for free, and he won't do it again, or won't do it very often. He's got his own building firm in Buckinghamshire. So off to Screwfix now. Drywall screws. I might get some 70s and some 90s because I'm going through on the first floor. I'm doing 25mm insulation. On the attic floor, I'm doing 50mm insulation. So 12.5 plus 50 plus a good amount of depth into the batten is probably 90 for the 50mm room, and then probably 70 for the first floor where I'm using 25mm, 65, 70 maybe. I'll go and see what they've got. So either way, frustrating day because I haven't been able to do everything really quickly because it's harder than I thought and I'm older than I used to be. But I'm thinking about strategies to speed up. I'm also putting some bids in on some other houses at the moment. I'll do an episode on buying, all my learnings on buying so far. But it's not easy. It's proving very frustrating. I was against going back to auctions because I got a bit fleeced on the fees. But it would appear equally challenging to buy through agents because of the need to have public notices on bids, etc. now, which is basically gazumping all over again. Anyway, Screwfix, Georgina, night's sleep, back to work tomorrow, hopefully with Al. But if not, then I'm going to try and have a turbo day. I'll get loads of Red Bull, ibuprofen, and try and get it all done. So, the next day. I was feeling a bit low last night because I got very little done yesterday and because it was hard work. However, today is a new day and I have brought with me brother-in-law Al, who is going to be tearing down these knee walls. Here he is. He's already done more in 20 minutes than I managed to do yesterday in total. So we'll pop this camera on here so we can watch his progress. It won't be a long video. Mid-afternoon on the third day of the week, much more productive day, had a lot of help from Al. That knee wall is down, this knee wall is down. I've started working out how I'm going to do the battens and the studs. I've started working out how I'm going to get the plaster up the stairs, very narrow stairs, massive sheets of plaster, so how am I going to get them up and how am I going to affix them until I tape them and put the board over them. How am I going to make sure I get, don't forget where the actual rafters or the joists or the studs are that I'm going to be attaching the board to. So much more enthusiastic today, much more positive, a lot more done, and ready for Big Leon to turn up tomorrow and help me batten out and insulate out and board out all of these walls in here before turning to the first floor tomorrow. Anyway, really enjoyed today, made progress. It's Big Leon Day. He's here and he's already found 5 things to do that will be quicker. Right? We're not going to take those studs down, we're just going to use them as they are and build a cover behind it. Instead of doing battens like this, we're just going to put a plate on the floor and go up alongside the rafters. Already 3 or 4 tips where a bit more experience is finding ways to go quicker. So we'll put the time capture on and we're going to start building out this room before we then go and have a look at the gutters and I go up a ladder. Which I don't really want to do.
I'll record that.
Yeah, you can record.
I'll record that one.
Yeah, anyway, Big Leon's here. We're saved. So things were going really well with having Big Leon on site. He's my mate, he's my best man, and he knows that I'm doing this for the first time, and he's come to help show me how to do this after years of being a builder himself. However, it wasn't a great day. As those of you that have been watching my short videos will know, we found a big water leak at the beginning of the second day. We wouldn't have found it if we hadn't have taken that knee wall down. We called a roofer who came along. They're about to come in shot and stand in the way of the camera, and they quoted me £6,000 to £7,500 for a brand new roof. However, they told me that I should be claiming some of that from next door because the join between the roofs was the majority of the issue. So that wasn't a great message, but still, we were getting a lot done and the day was going really well otherwise. Right, so it's Friday afternoon. I'm absolutely pooped, so calling it a day. Made a huge amount of progress on the attic, and I've learned a lot about how to get battens on the wall, how to line up plasterboard, how to apply the vapor layer. I've also developed a personal hatred of this silver foil tape that goes between the PIR sheets. It's horrible. Anyway, so Leon's heading home, Big Leon, and I'll come back next week and I'll finish this off. Certainly getting the boards on the ceiling is the hardest bit, especially if you've only got two arms. But yeah, the walls should be quite easy, and I've now got into the knack of how to get the boards upstairs. So this room is sort of 75% done, and at that point be ready for a skim, and the electrician to come in and finish the lights, put some LEDs in, etc. Be a nice little room. We could probably put a nice floor surface down and move the radiator and put a nice new radiator on there, and it'll be fine. The only thing that's really gone wrong today is that having taken these knee walls down and it had a good rain shower overnight, we realised that the roof's leaking. So we've made contact with the landlord next door, and we're going to send them some information about the fact that it's their roof that's largely the problem. And probably what I'll do is I'll finish boxing this room out with plasterboard and skirting and get it all ready, but I probably won't plaster it until we can be certain the roof's fixed, and I've got plenty to do downstairs before we need to do that anyway. So peace out, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, please subscribe to the channel, like the videos, add any comments of any advice you'd like to give, and then I'll send some more videos next week when we do the next stage.